So I would say my favorite mobility ones, I think a lot of people talk about front pose and back pose because those are two big ones, right? The most common complaints I hear is not being able to rotate enough in the front pose or not being able to arch their back enough in the back pose. It's oftentimes a lot more deep than that for people because sometimes it can be another joint causing the immobility. But I will say, let's say if we're doing back pose, I actually did a video on my Instagram of it, but I like doing, you're on your hands and knees and you're doing a segmental cow. I guess there's like the angry cat and there's the cow. The reason why I say segmental is because that improves motor control. Oh, perfect. I'm so glad. She's like, those are exactly them. Um, so motor control, as opposed to a lot of people when they do the cat cow, they kind of hinge at one specific point, and that doesn't help. But if they purposefully go one bone at a time, and then on while they're here in that cow, I'll tell them to kind of rock back if they can while maintaining that pelvic position. That way too, say if your back post stiffness is actually because of a hip impingement issue, when your pelvis tilts forward, you arch your back. You have to realize that your hip also has to be okay in the socket with being in that flex position. So some people,
Yeah.
it's actually a hip impingement, like intolerance, and that's why their body doesn't want to go. But this hands and knees arching and rocking, that helps to improve mobility in your hips, your pelvis, and your low back. And then depending on what you feel, I might incorporate things like one of those thick mobilizing bands if it is a hip specific issue. But that's a good starting place for the back pose. And then for the front pose, for the rotation, I would say one of my easy favorites is just some open books, like I mentioned earlier to Chelsea, where you're unsupported. That's just a good starting point to see, is it truly a mobility thing? Because if you are totally on your side and you're keeping your hips laser beamed forward and that top hip is on the ground or that, excuse me, that top leg while you're reaching back, if you're like, I don't feel any stretch at all, then it might not actually be a joint mobility issue with your upper half. It might be how your muscles are performing. So that's a good place to start too.